Morning, guys. It's Calvin, Country Company New Zealand. Now, for you guys that watched Phil's video yesterday, this is the update for it. For you guys that didn't, let's do a real brief recap. Made a loom, sent it to the States, mate Phil fitted it, and then the engine failed. And now why? Now it was because of this right here. We looked at he sent me the logs, and we'll see here that the oil pressure was very low, and I did change the calibration on that oil pressure. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go oil pressure, and I'm going to change it to automatic display, automatic, there we go, automatic scaling, that's what we want. And you look at that, that looks at oil pressure, it's jumping up and down a bit. But when we look at it, the scale actually goes from 4.4 to 5.4 kPa. So there's actually only 1 kPa of difference between the highest and the lowest point. The problem being it's 5.4 is the highest it goes. I've got a calculator here. Watch this. Now for you guys that don't know how to convert kPa into PSIs, and kPa is also used for boost pressure, well, 100 kPa is 1 atmosphere, or 1 bar, which is about 14.7 psi. Now, if you want to do it in your head, just use 15 because it's really easy. So you go 200 kPa, it's about 30. Okay, it's close enough. If you want to do it exact, so let's go 14.7. And then we're going to times it by, and kPa 100, let's make that 100%. So 5 kPa, or 5.4, is 5.4% of that. So I'm going to times it by 0.054. And that was the best reading we had. The best reading. It was down lower than that. So 0.79 of a PSI, less than 1 PSI. Okay. So the engine ran for about 20 minutes with less than 1 psi of oil pressure. That's a problem, okay? That's why our engine failed. Nothing to do with the management. Something else has gone wrong. So, Phil's a mate of mine, okay? And I can be pretty direct with him. Oh, just going to get the phone. I'll be back to you in a moment. Right, I'm back. I totally forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, this is how my day normally goes. Right there. Right, that's pretty normal for my day. Right, so we know that this engine was running on no pressure. Now, I actually have a little bit of a video of it running prior to it making noises. Right here. And Phil was pretty reasonable with that laptop straight away. He didn't need too much coaching. It was pretty good. Right, and then we've got this one. Now, he was worried about it dropping in vacuum. And that's actually pretty normal. It's kind of how an engine works. Of course, that will be improved once it's tuned. But I'm wanting to listen, not to what he's saying, more so to the way the engine runs.
So when I hit the throttle, drops down. I'm not sure why. Even if I do it slow. Otherwise, it runs pretty freaking amazing.
Right, so it was running good, sounding nice. And then there's this video. Now, I showed this video on the first one, but I didn't realize it had sound to it. Now, I often have lunch with my mum. My mum is 82 years old and an amazing woman. Still out farming. Every now and then she puts past in one of my videos in a little four-wheel drive mule. And we sit down at lunch most days, most weeknight days when I'm at the workshop, because she's not here very long. and I discussed some of the jobs that I'm having, and I got her to listen. And often I have my mum do diagnosis. She knows nothing about mechanical stuff. She's been a farmer all her life. And you know what? She's pretty much on point of the right answer most times. And this is really interesting because she's got no mechanical experience. She just goes, yeah, that sounds like it's a bucket of bolts. It's good. Let's have a listen. Wrong button. This is not right. And of course, what we found was the front cam pulley had fallen off. I was wrong, eh? It was the nut. The nut had fallen off. Broken the key. It was spinning. It was only running on 4 cylinders. So that last video, it's running on 4 cylinders. Right. Right. So we know the engine's done damage. It's actually nipped up in the front cam cap. It's sheared the key, sheared the bolt off, or the bolt's broken. And sometimes that's because it's been over tightened. Sometimes because it's been under tightened. It's been chattering. Sometimes damaging the cam. We know this engine's been run for about 20 minutes with no oil pressure, or next to no, very low. So next is what has happened, what's gone wrong. So I'm here in New Zealand. I can look at the data, and I do quite a lot of these paid sessions. So I get paid to sit in front of my laptop and run over data and then make suggestions or help people out. Okay. If I sell a computer, as long as guys don't take the piss and pester me every 5 minutes, then I will support my product that I've made and help them out. There does come a point when, again, it becomes a charged session. Okay, Phil, I'm not charging it because you're a mate of mine at the moment. No, you're still going to be a mate. And of course, I can say things to Phil, guys. He's a bit more than a normal customer. So if he's being silly, I will be sarcastic back to him, and he doesn't get butthurt like some people these days, which is good. And he tries really hard to sort a lot of stuff out, and he's really good with the laptop. He's done a lot of good stuff. His knowledge is going to improve all the time. So, what's gone wrong? Now, I asked a couple of questions. Now, what has been changed? Has it just had an oil change? Yes, it has. Did it have enough oil? Yes, it did. Okay. What else has been changed in the system? And it always had oil pressure before, but it's changed the remote oil filter. Changed to a remote oil filter. Let's have a look at the products that he used. No, this wasn't the product. This is the phone's going. It's right there. When it's your PA, it's kind of important to answer the phone. So, as we can see here, you can see it's nipped up in that front cam cap. That is causing us some problems. Let's find those parts. Right, so here we are looking down. Here's your cam pulley, looking down the side of the radiator. And there's a remote oil filter. Now I've done a video on warnings for remote oil filters. I wish Phil had watched it, giving away the clues. Here it is, here is the block. So there is the oil pressure sensor. There's the crank sensor. This one is the outlet from the engine. And this is where guys get confused. This is the outlet from the engine or from the oil pump. This is the inlet back to the engine. And you put your oil pressure sensor after the oil filter. And so then if the oil filter gets blocked, you will pick up that lack of pressure. Okay. And this is where your controlled oil leak is. So oil pressure is generated by a loss of oil within the engine. And so you're actually measuring how much oil is leaking from the system. You provide more oil and then some leaks out. And that's how you pass your bearings, pass your cam if you've got VVTi through the VVTi, those sorts of things. Okay, and that's why we have the oil pressure sensor after the oil filter as well. Right, so this is going to the oil filter. This is coming back from the oil filter. Now, the other thing with oil filters is they actually flow from the outside into the filter and then out through the center. We've got to a point in society where a lot of people don't know how oil filters work, and that's really important because there's often a bleed back valve on the outside edge. Right. Yep. There we go. Oh, there they are. There's your hoses. So again, this is going to the filter. This is coming back from the filter. Looks nice and neatly tidy and mounted in there. Looks good. So this is the housing that he used. This one is the outside, of course. Excuse me. And it is marked in. So you have the outlet from the engine goes to the inlet of the oil filter housing, and then the outlet of the oil filter housing, which is from the center of the oil filter, goes to the inlet on the engine. Okay, and this is where people get a little confused. So this goes into the block, so that goes through the outside of the filter, and from the inside of the filter comes back to the engine. We already worked out that he's done it wrong, eh? It took me a little while, took me a few questions, but it does appear to be wrong. And if you look here, it's upside down. So there's the crankshaft position sensor, and he's connected this one to the out. So this is the outlet from the engine, but goes to the inlet of the oil filter housing, and that's right there's where the mistake was made. That's cost him an engine. He did ask me whether he should pull the block. You know, it's knocked up in the head. I absolutely think he should pull the block. And have a look at those bearings. Put a set of bearings through it as a minimum. If it is a race boat, if I'm working on a race vehicle, and I see an oil pressure loss more than about 10 seconds, we're pulling that engine out. As the tuner, as the data guy on the day, I'm saying, I'll finish the race day. Yes, absolutely finish the race day. But then I'm saying, take the engine rebuilder, pull those bearings. And you know what? The engine builders love me because they're never going to say, no, it didn't need to be done. But it also means, you know, when we're talking on a race situation, I had one guy, he was flying from the USA to New Zealand, hopping in his boat, racing, and then hopping back in the plane and flying back home, and then 2 weeks later turning around and doing it again. So we actually had a hose pop off at one of the race meetings, and it was only it was about 15-20 seconds at the most that it had a less oil pressure than it should, and that's actually taking into account the dropping time of that oil pressure, but it wasn't long. The next meeting for us here, I was in the North Island, was in the South Island. As a drive, it's about a 25-hour drive. It's a few hours flight, but it's a day and a half's worth of driving and tripping to get down to the event. And the driver for the boat was coming from the US. Mate, I'm not going to say, hey, maybe it'll be okay if we go down to Wanaka and it might be okay to race. I'm not taking that risk. We pulled that engine block, and yeah, it needed some bearings, and then we raced successfully at the next round with no problems. Okay, so 20 minutes, absolutely pull that block down. And thanks to the data, I can see what's going on. Okay, lesson learned for Phil, and hopefully it's a lesson for everyone else. And so we can learn not just from my mistakes in this case, but from others. With the remote oil filter housings, the other thing I've seen is people put a oil filter on with a non-drain back valve on, and they run that drain back valve for years. And I've seen, I had a garage who had to pay for an engine because he did an oil change on it, and then he fitted a better collar filter with a drain back, and the engine lunched itself and it had run like that for years. But the person had always bought really cheap, crappy oil filters, but that's what it had actually been saving it. It was filtering backwards. So anyway, fit up your oil pressure, fit up your oil filter, remote oil filters properly, and check your oil pressure when you fire up an engine, and install your gauges and sometimes I don't. I break that rule, but it does pay to have your gauges set up and running prior or when you first fire it up, just to check that you don't get into this problem. Hope that's been helpful with an update. Hope I haven't rambled too much. But hey, we'll talk to you again soon. We'll catch you later.